You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Hello, I'm Stephen Willis from the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, and he is Josh Guest, who doing his weekly Ole Miss segment as well. Josh, are you going to come down to the meet and greet on July 2nd? That's what I need to know.
I have been paying attention to that, so I will be checking my schedule for sure. I don't know for sure yet, but it is close enough. I used to live in Madison, and so I'm going to do my darndest to get down there, but I just don't know what July 2nd holds just yet.
Yes, and Stewart's Cajun Dill Pickles is going to be in the house with delicious spicy pickles.
Yeah, I knew that was one of your what's the word? Not requirements, not the right word, but you needed that to happen to be able to host it somewhere.
Yeah, something like that. And no, Justin's good people. He's been with us, obviously. If we do that for a reason. But he's good people, and I'm glad we're all going to get to meet and hang out and all stuff like that as well. Anyway, we're going to start the show talking about, hey, Ole Miss survived the transfer portal. They lost nobody that was on the too deep. And yes, save me the joke and the eye rolls about Ole Miss not putting out a depth chart, but realistically, they lost nobody on the too deep. Kedrick Reesano is probably the biggest loss of the transfer portal cycle, but now it's about acquisition and going to get players to come in.
It is, and I think it was a surprise departure. It almost makes you wonder, like my first thought when I heard it was maybe this is more about a calendar year than anything else. Because if Reesano doesn't play a whole lot this year and then next year he comes in and, takes over, so to speak, maybe that's got something to do with it. I don't know. Maybe there's somebody else we're targeting that we don't know about. I don't know that either. But with Bentley and then why can I not Jacory? Yes. And then of course Diggs won't be ready. There he is. I mean, that's a pretty good stat line right there. That's 1,100 yards. That's pretty good. 1,200 yards. That's a pretty good stat line. Mm-hmm. So, and it no slouch either. I mean, New Mexico's not an SEC school, but I mean, no school is. It's not an SEC school. So, and that'll have something to do with my. I see you have my rankings over there, and we'll talk about that when we get there as well. But I think we survived it unless there's some more surprises that pop in at the last minute. But I don't expect it, and we'll see how this all plays out. Not only for this year, but moving forward, because if depending on how it's handled from this point forward, could possibly affect the future springs, not only in how it was handled already with the spring game in practice, but also how players who might transfer into a Lane Kiffin team feel about transferring into a Lane Kiffin team, if that makes sense. So I think there's still, the jury's still out, but so far I think they've handled this beautifully. I think the whole all-in thing, with Jackson Dart, Stephen, I've been thinking about that too. And this is not a knock to anybody else. And I love Eli Manning, and he did a great thing for Ole Miss. But one of the rumors around locally when Eli was here was that some of the defenders didn't want to play for him for some reason. I don't even understand that, but that was something that was said. And so, now you have a total opposite thing where Jackson Dart's on playing video games, trying to recruit him. And again, who knows if any of that's true, but the game at Florida sort of turned things around. I think, if I'm not mistaken, D'Angelo Williams ran all over us that year, and they beat us. And then Texas Tech, the shootout with 119 points or something. We fell by 3 or something. So, we were – and then LSU, that was the game that still makes me wake up at night with sweats and stuff, because we should have won that game. The phantom calls, in my opinion, there in that game that cost us. I'll probably never let that one go, Stephen. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and you shouldn't. Speaking of LSU, are you still going down for the road trip? Is that still on?
We have tickets to 2 of the games, and it really is going to boil down to whether or not my son's team makes the state finals in baseball. If they do make it, it's not supposed to interfere with anything, but he has said that if he makes it, he doesn't want to miss school or practice. And I understand that, getting ready for a state championship run and a finals series in Pearl. So if his team does make it, which we are the 1 seed, the highest remaining seed left. That doesn't mean anything other than we're the 1 seed. And so you still got to play the games. We have a tough matchup this weekend and a tough one beyond that. If we advance, whoever advances has a tough matchup. So yes, if we're out, and no, if we're not.
Okay. Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen of the day. When we come back, we will get Josh's top 5 of SEC coaches. I gave you mine on Thursday. All of my guests have given theirs. Josh gets to go last. Come back and we will talk about that in just a minute. But right now, I'll let you know, we've all been there, either as a player or a fan. It's halftime and the scoreboard is not looking good. You're feeling low and you're not sure if your team can pull out a win. That is when you dig deep, lift your head up and say to yourself, it's time to get back in the game, pull off some bank heists, and make as much money of my friends' money as I possibly can. That's right. The smash hit mobile game, Monopoly Go, lets you compete with your friends for the most riches and the biggest empires in Monopoly you love, but on your phone anytime with a ton of new twists, including leaderboards to compare your progress with your buddies. There's so much to do. Play on countless dynamic Monopoly boards. You can destroy your friends' landmarks with a wrecking ball, charge other players rent for your iconic properties. You can even work with your friends to crack open community chests in tournaments to get extra rewards and climb the leaderboard. So get back out there, put your game face on, and download Monopoly Go. It's now free on the App Store or Google Play. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED highlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. And with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need and the prices you want, it's easy to keep your job, keep your car the MVP, and bring home those huge wins. Keep your ride or die at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay's Guaranteed Fit is only available to U.S. customers. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day and you have to turn the volume down with all of that screaming and shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 streaming channel programmed for you each and every single day to bring you the biggest stories without all of that screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube, on the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now, Josh, you get to go last, which is kind of cool, but we are going to do the top 5 SEC football coaches, head football coaches, right now. We're going to start with number 5. What is number 5 for you?
So I couldn't decide who I wanted at 5. So I did a selfish personal thing. I got to watch Josh Heupel play in the Independence Bowl against Ole Miss. So I'm putting Heupel at 5 because I couldn't choose. And once we get done, I left a couple out there, and you can tell me if you want to ask me or whatever. But I put Heupel at 5.
Okay. What is number 4?
I put Sark at 4. I know he hadn't been in the SEC yet. They're coming to the SEC, but he was at Texas. That's a big-time program and a big-time conference. And so I went ahead and put him there at 4 just because, like I said, he was in the playoff. And I think he can keep Texas rolling in the SEC.
Number 3.
Drinkwitz at Missouri. I think what he's done there is nothing short of a miracle, especially if you just go back, 5-7 years ago. I mean, it was kind of a debacle there. And so they were just trying to hold things together and patch it up. And maybe I have the time frame wrong there, but there was a time where Missouri football was really in turmoil. And I just feel like with what he's accomplished there, he deserves some credit. Maybe he's not at the top of the conference, but he's not far off. And Missouri's a pretty good team. So number 2, I got Lane Kiffin.
Okay.
With again what he's done with Ole Miss, and I know we haven't won anything yet, but I mean we did win the record for regular season games last year. We've won double digits 2 years in a row, or whatever it is. I mean he's he's just done phenomenal things. And then this year with the portal and the players, the roster he's assembled. And again, a good roster is different than a good team, I know, but just the things that he's been able to do at Ole Miss, which is hard for someone like me to fathom someone doing.
And number one is probably a free space.
It is. I'm going to say Zach Arnett. No kidding. Kirby Smart. I know Zach's with us now, but Kirby Smart at Georgia, obviously. You know, how could he not be right now, especially with Saban gone, number one?
Okay. Obviously, you left off Brian Kelly. You left off Kalen DeBoer. Tell me why.
Those are the two I was talking about when I said that. So with Brian Kelly, I just think if you're going to have the resources LSU has and your defense is that bad, you can't be in the top five. I do like what he can do as a coach, but I just feel like right now he's not there just because for whatever reason that defense was almost non-existent last year. And then Kalen DeBoer, I mean, I know I put Sark in there because of Texas, but I just think Texas is a different kind of program than Washington is. And I'm not trying to knock anything he's done, and he may prove to be better than Saban. I don't know if that's going to happen, but you know, he may hold his own, and that's fine. I want to see it first. And I know it's maybe unfair to put Sark in there and not him, but that's sort of where I'm at with that.
Thanks again for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Josh Guest, thank you very much for coming on, buddy. We'll talk to you next week.
All right. Hotty toddy.
Hotty toddy.